Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show, and I'm very happy to have back here in our studio Judd Werner. He's here with the Citizens Climate Lobby, and with him he brought Robert Davies, who not only is a physicist but also a professor at Utah State University, and is going to be speaking at an event that we're going to be talking about here in just a moment. Welcome both of you to the show, gentlemen. Terrific to have you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much. So first and foremost, Judd, why don't you take the opportunity to introduce us to your friend here?
All right, I'll do that. Well, this is Dr. Robert Davies, and Rob is a physicist, and he's an associate at the Utah Climate Center and an adjunct professor at Utah State University. And I first met Rob in April of this year. I listened to a presentation that Rob made in Salt Lake City. I was so impressed. Of course, I asked him a bunch of questions afterwards. I don't know if he remembers that, but one thing led to another. I became affiliated with Citizens Climate Lobby. Decided it'd be a great opportunity for Park City to have Rob speak to the public here, and invited him. He accepted. That's why we're here.
Excellent.
All right.
We're going to talk about that in a little more in depth in a moment. Iceberg Dead Ahead, as I understand is what it's called, this event. But first and foremost, now my folks, my parents, both Aggies. So although I'm Westminster Griffin, I still bleed blue. And that's my mom would kill me if I said anything different. But that being said, I didn't know that they had Plant Soils Climate Department. That's pretty cool, first of all.
Right, so that's in the College of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And so it actually used to be Plant Soils and Biometeorology.
Really?
But nobody knew what biometeorology was. So they decided to change it. And of course, as climate change has just grown as a topic, it seemed appropriate to sort of maybe shift emphasis and also shift to a name that resonated with people.
When you were young, when you were studying, did you think that this was going to be a large field? Did you think this was going to be something that was important to us in this manner that it is?
This is not, I'm not doing anything, the work I'm doing is not what I expected to be doing. And it's not really what I principally studied when I was in school. Yeah. I did my PhD in physics, but a completely different field in physics. And about 10 years ago, I was I was on a research post in England at Oxford University, and just got interested in the topic of climate change. There's a big environmental change institute there. I got to know some of the people there, went to some lectures, and just became quite struck with the gap between what science understood about climate and climate change and what the public understood, and got interested in it principally as a communication issue initially.
We should talk about that. I wish we could get into this to the level that I want to, but that's what the lecture is about.
Sure, we'll give you some teasers.
Yeah, let's definitely get some teasers. What are the things that we don't know that science knows?
Well, that was a decade ago, and I would say that the situation has changed quite a lot. I thought I was going to take a year and do some what I thought of as sort of public interest communication, science communication, and then I would go back to my regular life in physics in a completely different field called quantum optics. But the interest was just growing so much that I just kept going with the lectures, and eventually signed on with the Utah Climate Center. But the lectures I was giving 10 years ago were very much about the very basics of climate science. And that's what people really needed to and wanted to hear about. These days, most people understand the basics. And so the conversation is very much pivoted toward where do we go from here. And so I would say it's evolved quite a lot in the last decade.
Are we on a better track towards saving our climate at this point?
The short answer is not really. There have been, but the longer answer and the more detailed answer, which is better, is that there have been lots of moves and lots of action, lots of activity. And I often actually, so the iceberg metaphor pops up all the time.
Sure.
But I also liken it to an iceberg, which we know they can float out there in the ocean for months and months and seem like they're not changing. And then one day they just sort of flip and just completely upend themselves. And what's been happening, of course, is lots of actions underneath the water, changing the shape of the iceberg and changing its center of gravity and everything. But you don't notice it, and so these are, very nonlinear systems. It doesn't seem like anything's happening for a little long time. A little nudge, nothing. A little nudge, nothing. A little more nudge, and then all of a sudden, big change. And I would say that often social issues are like that as well. So it can seem like not a lot is changing, but what's going on in the background is a lot of preparation that will manifest itself as a big change, and hopefully that will be soon.
I know the thing that Judd and I are both concerned about, though, is the tipping point. Are we there? Are we at a I mean, I'm gathering from what you're saying, we're still at a place where we can turn this around. We can turn the ship away from the iceberg, so to speak.
Right. Well, so the thing about the science, of course, is that it's not that precise in the sense of, can we say that this year we're past the tipping point, or we'll be past the tipping point 3 years from now? We don't know everything, and so you can't be that specific. But not knowing everything, not the same as not knowing anything. So we do know quite a lot, and we can bracket it. And I think what the science would say is, and what we need to pay attention to as a society, is that there very likely are tipping points, and the evidence suggests that they're close.
Okay.
To put a number on it, a couple of decades perhaps.
Wow.
So from a risk management perspective, you can sort of think of it as walking blind towards a cliff, and someone says, well, you're within 200 yards. You might be 2 yards, you might be 200 yards, so every step you take is going to be pretty careful.
Wow.
And so from a risk management standpoint, of course, you'd rather just change direction than take another step toward the cliff.
I'll say I would. Is this some of the stuff that got your interest, Judd? Because clearly I'm walking away almost a little frightened. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I already knew things were bad, but this scares me a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah, this is what caught my interest. I recently made a change in my life. I retired from my first career in February and decided that I wanted to investigate working in the renewables field. And so as I did that, there were several enlightenments that came my way. One of which was that climate change is a more pressing issue than I had been led to believe. That we were closer to tipping points, and that the tools, even though Rob mentions there's still there's considerable uncertainty, but they're better than they were, and there's more accurate correlation now with empirical data than there has ever been, and there's more empirical data to correlate with.
That's a lot more people doing the work.
So it was this revelation, and so that sort of drove me into, in addition to the work that I want to do in renewables and still would like to do, what I learned about climate change drove me towards engaging citizens' climate lobby and working on the issue.
Now, we only have a minute or two left, and I still want to tackle a couple of important questions for the Park City residents, because I know they want me to ask. So let's talk for a moment about the event. It is Iceberg Dead Ahead. When, where, and how?
Okay. So it's next Sunday night, the 17th of July, in the Jim Sandy Auditorium at the Park City Library. It starts at 6:30 p.m. The event's free to the public, That's about it. We have plenty of seats. We'd like to fill them.
It's going to be great. Yeah, Jim Santy Auditorium, a terrific location for this. It's a great opportunity to hear the doctor speak about the climate. Tell me you'll obviously be talking about some of the things we just spoke about. Will you talk about the concerns of local park guides, which are we going to get more snow? Is snow in our future? Is snow going to be, we're going to get less over the next couple decades? What's going to happen?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So at the Utah Climate Center has actually done quite a lot of work specifically, and I don't only present research that we do at the Climate Center. I present research from all over the world. But not surprisingly, the Utah Climate Center has looked at precipitation, and particularly snowpack in Utah. I'll present some of those results and some of the projections as we move forward in the next, this century. So the next, let's call it 2 to 8 decades. I think people will be very interested in those results. Not to put too fine a point on it, but it's not surprising. In a warming world, you expect less of your precipitation to come as snow, and of course that's a huge deal for us here in Utah, both for the skiers, of which I am one, and for our water supply as well.
It sounds like it's going to be tremendously interesting, certainly, and I'm stoked to get to hear you talk about it more. The event again on Sunday, Jim Santy Auditorium at
6:30.
6:30. 6:30. So make sure you're at the event. We've got it pulled up there for you online right now. And I want to thank both of you for being here and for your care for our world. Thank you both for that. It's especially, Doctor, you're putting your life to it, which is tremendous. I hope people will start following along with you.
Well, I've had good response, and people like Judd, also are doing just kind of a yeoman's job, trying to get information out there so people can start making informed choices.
That's what it's all about. And if people want to join the Citizens Climate Lobby, they can.
Absolutely.
And where do they go for more info on that?
Where do they go? Just World Wide Web citizensclimatelobby.org to start with, or you can find we're tabling at the Park City Farmers Market most Wednesdays, and so if you see our table there and our banner, please stop by and engage us in conversation. All right.
Well, thank you both so very much. Park City Television, one of the presenting sponsors of this event. We care about our climate. We care about getting out in the snow. We know you do too, and we know that's a big part of it, but there's so much more. And of course, that'll all be tackled on Sunday, so make sure you're there. We got a lot more coming up here on the Mountain Morning Show right after these messages.